when we are going to be making that delicious filling. We're going to be piling. It's just a what do you call these knives? It's just a knife you eat your food with. I don't know what you call them. What's my show called?
It's called Kay's Enormous... No, it's called...
Kay's Classic Bakes.
Yeah, to make it...
It's delicious.
It is delicious. And
Haven't had a soggy bottom when I've done this before.
I'm not joking you, I did seriously consider getting sleeves.
It was, I don't know, a tiny, no, it's not a... Oh, you know what I mean, it's just a normal knife.
I couldn't do the sleeves.
No.
But what I could do is the belt.
Oh, this is so funny. Let me just move my curds out of the way as well. So first thing we've got to do is get our curds just... No. Oops. My scales have come off because I was gossiping so much.
Welcome, everybody, to the Bakery Bears video show featuring a brand new episode of Kay's Classic Bakes.
Yay.
Oh yes, if you are looking for something seasonal, something regional, and that is a taste of my childhood, you have come to the right place.
Right place.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
We absolutely need to tell them what you're going to be making.
Do we?
Yes.
Right now?
Straight off the bat.
Wow.
It is something I used to adore when well, from as young as I can remember up to about the age of about 20. Once I moved away from York and I couldn't go in Thomas the Baker's anymore because that's where I started buying it from.
Right.
It is Yorkshire curd tart.
Yes.
Now, I bet lots of people don't know what that is.
I bet they don't.
It is like a sort of cheesecake
I mean,
thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's basically a cheesecake, but not a cheesecake that you might have typically had before. It's very different to, for example, you know, the American style cheesecakes. It's nothing like that at all, is it?
No.
It's really not. The texture's not the same. The taste isn't the same.
Well, all will be revealed, of course, later when Kay shows you how to make it.
It's delicious.
It is delicious. And in the process of making a Yorkshire curd tart, you have to make curds.
You do.
Cheese curds.
You have to make your own cheese curds.
And in the process of making cheese curds, you have to remove the curds from the whey.
You do.
And in the process of filming, Kay said this in a completely different context.
Let me just move my curds out of the way as well.
Genius!
What did I say? I can't remember.
She had to move the curds out of the whey.
Oh, they were in a bowl and I moved them out of the way.
I mean, is that not classic? And it did make me ponder, because it's just so obvious. Move out of the way. You have to move things out of the way to make cheese. I mean,
yes.
Maybe I'm looking too deeply into this.
Maybe that's where the word whey, W-A-Y, I can't say
We now
letters.
need to know. We need to know the etymology. That's the right thing, isn't it?
Is that the right word?
I think
that
so.
That sounds right.
I know it's posh. The etymology of the word whey.
Yeah. Is it connected to W-H-E-Y?
So what a show we have in store.
Yes.
Because it truly is a classic bake.
It really is, and it's so delicious. If you've never heard of it, never had it, you're going to love it. If you've had it before and you're familiar with Yorkshire curd tart, then making it yourself is just fantastic.
Yes. It's just, honestly, the absolute business.
Yeah.
We loved it so much. We've got some in the freezer.
Yes, we did. We froze a chunk of the first one, didn't we?
Yes,
Because I had to trial it fully from start to finish. So we froze a chunk of that, and we had some the other day. Perfectly lovely.
Yeah.
So you can also freeze it.
Talk about a great pudding. Well, it's not a pudding. It's a bake. Talk about a great bake. I sometimes
you could have it. You could have it for your pudding. You see, I use the word pudding as to mean dessert.
But the problem is
what you're having for your pudding.
But of course, as we found out before, probably 70% of our audience thinks of a chocolate sort of moussey thing when we say pudding.
I don't think it's even a mousse, is it? It's like a sort of chocolate custardy thing.
Yes.
Yeah, but no, it's used. You know, I always say what you're having for your pudding, meaning what you're having for your dessert.
Yes.
I never really say dessert. Yeah.
Now look, the latest issue of Knitability is out.
Yes.
And within it, there's lots of amazing articles, and our wonderful editor Jen did the most spectacular job. And there's also emotional support chickens. Oh yes.
Yes.
But I wrote an article all about my love of Journey. Our love of Journey.
Love of Journey.
And our particular love of the lead singer Arnel Pineda.
Yes.
My current issue.
Love him.
My current issue is I found myself waking up in the middle of the night singing in my head.
Yeah.
Actually, I'll tell you what it is at the moment, Kay.
Which one?
It is I Won't Hold You Back, Toto.
Oh.
During COVID,
Yeah.
Arnel got together some musicians from Italy. And they recorded. Steve Lukather from Toto gave him permission to record one of Toto's classic tracks called I Won't Hold You Back. And
it's beautiful. It's on YouTube. It's only on YouTube, isn't it?
Yeah, you can't download it or whatever. So you go watch it on YouTube. It's just spectacular.
Beautiful.
It's spectacular. Toto songs are so difficult to cover. So all the musicians do amazingly well, but specifically the vocals, just crazy.
Yeah.
So I was looking at ways of honouring my love of Arnel.
Danny's obsessed.
And I'm not joking you, I did seriously consider getting sleeves.
He was talking about, because Arnel's got 2 tattooed sleeves and he actually looks super cool with them, you know. And Dan's like, oh, I'm like, you would never have a sleeve. I don't know that I would object if he did decide to have a tattooed sleeve, because I think it would look cool. And I'm not a person that would ever think about tattoos. But yeah, I mean, they look so cool on Arnel. But
So look, I couldn't do the sleeves.
No.
But what I could do is the belt.
Oh, this is so funny.
Can you see my belt?
Can you see Dan's belt? Right.
What you need to do is you need to go and watch the Journey concert that was filmed in 2017.
Yes.
It is
in Japan.
In the Budokan. And there are some tracks of it on YouTube.
There are.
But it is available on things like Apple Music, so it's probably available on other music streaming services.
Yeah.
And this is pretty much...
He's wearing a belt.
Pretty much an exact replica.
Yeah, very much like that. And it looks so cool on him. And Dan's like, oh, I really like his belt. I said, well, look, let's just try and find one. So I searched for days.
Etsy,
right?
baby.
And I found this one on Etsy, a UK company, and it's handmade.
£31.
It was like £31. It's leather.
It's superb.
You know, it's leather, and it's got, you know, those sort of eyelet rivets, and it's got
all the way around.
Yeah, all the way round, and it looks very similar to his. And I'm sure Arnel's was some designer brand.
It will be, because he actually, which is weird.
He wears a lot. You can tell a lot of the stuff he wears is designer stuff.
But you would have thought if a belt had rivets on it that you would be putting the belt mechanism through the rivet.
You don't,
but it
on
isn't
his.
on his.
No, we did analyse this in great... Yeah, we are really that sad. We did, take photos, screenshots and zooming in to try and see... Oh, we're really sad, aren't we?
Look, as I wrote about in...
Look, whatever makes you happy.
Exactly. As I wrote about in the issue of Knitability, it is rare in my life. There's only been 3 times when I've been properly musically inspired, and this is one of those times. And so I'm a musician at heart, and I've lent into it, shall we say.
Certainly has.
What a show, though, we have in store, because we've got lots of wonderful What's on Your Needles. We have lots of wonderful What's off Your Needles. Some of it is even being worn as we speak.
Da, da, da.
Can you believe it? Oh, yes. And actually, very quickly before we move on, we went to the cinema.
We did.
And it was like perfection, because the time to go to the cinema is first thing in the morning.
First thing in the morning.
When there's nobody there.
Yeah, I mean, they don't often have showings early in the morning, but we went on a Saturday and we went to the 9:35 showing. It was in screen 1, big massive screen, 5 people. So us 3 and 2 others who were way over there. It was just fantastic. I loved it.
And unbelievably, You know, also, thank you so much for finding the seats and for, I mean, that's just brilliant, really, because it's like you say, it's very rare that they put those screenings on.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, usually if there is a morning showing, it's like 11:30 or something. Which for us personally, 11:30 is the worst time because you're there right bang on lunchtime, aren't you? So what do? We have been known to take lunch in with us. We've done that several times. Yeah. So we've all got little lunch boxes, and we have our lunch in the cinema. I know most people would just get like nachos and hot dogs and all of that, but we don't do all that. So
no. Oh no, they look really bad. The last time I had one of those blue drink things, that was a bad move.
Yeah, we don't. I never buy drinks in the cinema because they're all so outrageously expensive.
Yes.
Yeah, so we always go in with our own stuff. I think a lot of people do. I don't think you're supposed to, but don't tell anyone.
Sneak it in.
Sneak it in your bag.
That's the way.
Don't tell anyone we do that.
Look, we bought the seats in front of us and behind anyway, so we were completely private. The crazy thing was,
Shh, don't
we go
tell
in
people
and it's empty, and it's empty.
Yeah,
look, this is how empty it was. It's just me.
Yes.
Where's everyone else? No, Kay and Bryony were sitting with me.
Yes.
They were just popping to the ladies' room.
Yes.
Too much information.
On
that note, I should ask.
We didn't say what we watched. People want to know.
It was Ghostbusters and it was
Ghostbusters Frozen-y thing. It was fine.
Don't bother, just go watch the first one again.
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
Yeah.
Kay Jones, what's on your needles?
Okay, so my first thing is a new cast on.
Thank you very much, caller.
And it's a new pair of socks for Dan.
In fact,
so
thank you again.
That will tell you that I finished the other pair, and I'll show you those later.
That's very exciting.
So it was time to cast on a new pair, and I ummed and ahed about which yarn to cast on. But in the end, I decided on this one. And the funny thing is, right, I wound this yarn, and during the winding of it, I thought, do you know what? I don't think I like this yarn. But I thought, no, I'm just going to give it a go. And as I was casting it on, I'm thinking, I said to you, didn't I? I said, I don't think I like this yarn. And you were like, well, knit something else, it's fine. I said, no, I'm going to persevere and I'm going to knit the rib and I'm going to see how I feel after I've knit the rib. And I'm definitely warming to this yarn. So I've never used it before, and it's a completely different type of sock yarn to anything I've ever knit with. And I think the thing is, I don't normally knit with yarns like this. It's kind of rustic. That's not something I normally knit with, so I think it's just taken me a while to sort of get used to a different feel. But it's this one. It's the John Arbon Exmoor sock.
We know Exmoor.
Do we?
Yeah, that's the hills near my mum.
Exmoor's near your mum?
Well, it's not.
No.
Maybe I've just been.
It's not Exmoor.
All I know is I've been to Exmoor and seen the ponies.
Oh, your mum is not Exmoor. She's in those hills. What are they called?
The Quantocks are right next to her, but Exmoor is not far. I promise you, because I've been and I've seen the wild ponies.
Oh, I haven't done that. So we went up into the Quantocks a couple of times when I've been down there.
Yeah, they're lovely actually.
They are lovely, yeah, they are lovely. So it's the Exmoor sock 4-ply, and these come in 50-gram cute little skeins, and it's 60% Exmoor Blueface, 20% Corriedale, and both of those are superwash, 10% Zwarbles, which isn't superwash, and 10% nylon. So it's a really interesting blend, and it's 200 metres per 50 grams, so it's bang on sock weight for me. So I thought I'd give it a go because I've never used it. And I bought 2 skeins of the blue that you saw, which is called Plashes. And then one of a lovely grey, which is called Mizzle. And the grey is this gorgeous, very heathery, lovely grey. And I'm knitting Dan a pair of socks. I got these 2 colours because they were the nearest ones that they had to sort of Detroit Lions colours.
And as people watch this,
the draft is going on.
Is in progress in Detroit.
The draft is in progress in Detroit.
Yes.
Oh, I'd love to be there. Oh, so exciting.
I was listening to a podcast this morning and people were talking about Lad McConkey. But I mean, first of all, great name.
Great name.
Potentially being first round draft pick.
Right.
But I think it would be amazing if that happened. But I've just got a feeling. I think they're going to trade out. Prediction. I think they're going to trade out of the first round.
Yeah.
and I think they're going to trade back maybe 4 or 5 picks,
Right.
and they'll get a few more extra picks for trading back.
Did you see that the Jets have traded
I did.
Zach Wilson
Yeah, to the Broncos.
to the Broncos? Everybody
Yes.
will have seen that by now.
Everybody. It's so
Everybody.
funny.
I kind of feel sorry for Zach because he was thrown into it like nobody's business last year because of the injury with Aaron Rodgers.
Look, we need to
Yeah,
save
anyway.
this for our NFL show.
Yes, we do. I do. So yeah, I cast on the sock and I've knit through the leg, and I wanted to. So yeah, these colours are not really Detroit Lions colours. The blue's totally wrong, but anyway, you know. So I've cast on the sock and I wanted to put in some kind of ribby texture. So at first I thought, oh, I'll design something new, and I had a look, and then I was like, hang on a minute, haven't I designed a sock that's sort of similar to this? And I looked it up and remembered it, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do that one. So I'm actually knitting the texture pattern that's in my Jemima socks pattern. And they were released as part of the Beatrix Potter Sock Club quite a few years ago.
Oh, I remember those.
Yeah, and I used a beautiful yarn that I dyed myself. It was the Fairy Garden colourway that I used to knit the actual socks, which is one of my favourites. I have dyed it, I think, on favourite colourways. And they just look fantastic. And I thought, great, I'm going to use that because it does lend itself for adding in stripes that look really clean. So here's where I'm up to.
And you like a clean stripe, don't
I like a clean stripe.
Yes.
So this is where I'm up to, and you can see that it's a lovely sort of ribby texture pattern.
Oh, you see, part of me is going to want you to send these to Dan Campbell when you've done.
I'm not going to send socks to Dan Campbell. Wouldn't that be a bit weird? They're not the right colours. I'd have to get proper.
Imagine if he wore
I'd have
them.
to get a proper. What's the sort of blue called?
Honolulu.
Thank you. I'd have to get some Honolulu blue, wouldn't I, and do them properly. The more I've knit of this sock and the more I'm working with the yarn, I am kind of warming to it, and I am definitely going to carry on with these socks.
You've done a. Did you mention you filmed part 1 of a review?
No, I have done a off-the-shelf review of this yarn, and I will now, when I finish these socks, I will go back and do a off-the-needles review, just to let let everyone know, or let our patrons know what I thought once I'd knitted through the pair. Now, one thing I will say about the yarn, the blue one, I've already had 2 knots in the skein, and I've only knit that much of the blue.
That's not good, is it?
And there's been 2 knots. I this is a 50-gram skein as well. I'm not massively impressed with that I've had 2 knots already.
No.
So I don't know. I mean, I didn't notice them as I was winding it, but you sometimes don't, do you? Because it's a quick thing and you don't really notice it. So I don't know if there's any more hiding in here. I mean, I'll let you know when I've knit through it. So that, I'm not massively impressed with. And also, it is a bit thick and thin. And I do like consistency with a sock yarn because I'm always a bit concerned that when it goes really thin, that's going to wear quicker than where it's just sort of a normal thickness. So it is a bit thick and thin, and I've had 2 knots. So we shall see, really. It is definitely rustic. It's not too scratchy, but it is, if you're used to, like me, knitting with sort of merino blend sock yarns, then this will feel really different. And it, like I say, it did put me off at first, but I've definitely got used to the difference in the texture and the difference in the feel, and I do really like how it's knit up. I think it's knitting up really nice. It looks beautiful with this texture. It's got great stitch definition. I think it's a 3-plied yarn.
Do you know, it's such an interesting thing. As you do anything more and more, you start to find the things that you like, and the thing I love the most is yarn with good stitch definition.
Yeah, it's a 3-plied yarn, so there's 3 plies. So don't be confused, like on the label here it says 4-ply. Now don't be confused by that, because in this country 4-ply is used as a way of communicating the weight of the yarn, not necessarily how many actual plies it's got. So a 4-ply yarn is kind of close to a sock weight yarn. Quite often it'll be a bit thicker. my recollection even of 4-ply yarn when I was young, when my mum was knitting with it, is that it was more like a sport weight. It was considered a baby yarn. You would knit like baby garments in 4-ply, and my mum used to hate knitting with 4-ply because it took forever. So she more often than not always used to use DK. But yeah, there's actually 3 plies within the yarn, so it is round, but it's not as round as a yarn with 4 actual plies. I think you all know what I mean. It's a little bit more rope-like, but not as much as a 2-plied yarn. But I'm really liking how it looks, and this pattern has got lots of lovely stretch. It's nice and ribby, which is what Dan likes, and it's adding a lot of interest for me as the knitter. Because this yarn is just solid colours, I kind of get bored. I really engage with the yarn itself, which is why I was sort of struggling a bit with this. But this grey is also winning me over. I love this grey. It's really heathered and really beautiful colour. I think at the moment what I'm going to do is I think I will do a grey heel, and then I might just do the rest of the sock blue. That's what I'm thinking at the moment, but we'll see. We'll see how I feel. I think this is as long as the leg is going to be, because the way that I've worked the stripes, everything's even at the moment. And if I knit more of the blue down here, it'll unbalance the blue pattern up here. So I think I'm going to leave the length like this. It's about just short of 5 inches.
Sorry.
So it's more... So it's more of a slightly shorter sock. Are you finished in the corner?
I'm so sorry.
So, I mean, it's a slightly shorter leg than normal. But we're coming...
Looks fine to me.
We're coming into sort of more warmer weather.
Just do whatever is right for the project.
Yeah,
blah, blah, blah.
I'm going to go with this length. So slightly shorter, but that's fine. And I'm using 2.5mm.
It's so important to do that, isn't it?
Needles.
To do what's right for the project always.
Yeah, it's lovely and balanced right now. So... I don't want to mess with that balance. Basically what I've done is 2 repeats of the pattern here, and then gone 1 repeat, 1 repeat, 2 repeats, 1 repeat, 1 repeat, 2 repeats. So it's lovely and balanced, and it adds that sporty sort of stripe effect to it. So I think I'm just going to start on the heel flap now, and then just, carry on with the socks. So I'm going to employ my few rows a day technique with these, because I do want to get on with them. I really like this pattern actually with this sort of a yarn, because the fairy garden that I originally knit it with, it's like it's a variegated, but it's more like a watercolour-y variegated, and it looked fantastic. But it's interesting, isn't it, doing the same pattern with different yarn, and it does have a different feel to it. So it's lovely. It's a really lovely pattern to knit. It's been years since I've knit it, so it's kind of like I was knitting it from scratch. And I absolutely love it. It's really nice. So yeah, I mean, we'll see how I get on with that, and I might show you again next time, just so that you can see how the whole socks got on, and then you'll be able to see what it looks like in stocking stitch once I get onto the foot as well. And I'm interested to see what it looks like in stocking stitch with this yarn, because it is a little bit thick and thin. I think the stocking stitch will have a bit of sort of texture, a bit of interest in it. But on the whole, it's been an interesting thing, because I started off really not liking it and thinking, I don't want to knit with this yarn, and then thinking, no, give it a chance, knit through the rib, and I liked the way that the rib looked. So I'm like, right, okay, and I sort of got used to the feel of the yarn then, and I thought, right, well, I want to see what it looks like in that texture pattern. And that motivated me. And then it was like, I want to see what it looks like in stripes. And I thought, oh yeah, that looks lovely, I'm going to carry on. So it sort of won me over. The only thing that, the only downside at the moment was the fact that I've had knots, and it's a bit thick and thin, which I'm not keen on. But
what's going to be really interesting,
we shall see,
is seeing how it wears.
Yeah, that is going to be interesting.
What do you think? What's your instinct?
Well, I've read lots of good things about it, and they actually, John Arbon sell finished socks on their website made out of this.
Right.
So if you don't want to knit it, you see, I couldn't even buy those for Dan because they wouldn't have ones big enough for him. But if you wanted to try it, but you didn't fancy knitting the yarn particularly, you can buy actual socks.
I'm like one of those hobbits don't they have big feet?
Hobbits? I don't know.
In
what
Lord
hobbits?
of the Rings.
I don't know anything about Lord of the Rings.
I think they do.
I know
have
there's
big
hobbits,
feet.
but I don't know what feet they have.
I'm pretty sure they've got oversized feet. The difference is my body is matched to my feet. Perfect.
Well, that's true. You're very tall. Dan's very tall. He's 6'5". So big hands, big feet. Just comes with it, doesn't it? I cast them on the day I finished the other ones, I cast them on the 20th of April. So we'll see how it goes.
Cool.
Dan Jones?
Yes.
What's on your needles?
Well, it's a jumper.
A jumper?
It is indeed. It is the Godey. And it's just plain knitting. But doesn't the fabric look gorgeous? Oh, I mean,
that
it's like...
colour is epically lovely.
It's to die for, isn't it? And
we can tell you what the colour is.
I've nearly wound it.
So it's Let Lopey. The shade number is 9431. Look at the colour. Isn't it lovely? Very autumnal. It's like squirrel colour. That's what it is, isn't it? Is it the colour of a squirrel?
A red squirrel. The bottom bit...
Yes, obviously.
The bottom bit is just gorgeous. And it's going to be so lovely to get into the yoke. I do find it a little bit too relaxing, knitting the bodies.
Falls you to sleep.
It does a bit, but it's not too bad. It's not like anything. It's not like something else, like plain knitting on a hat, for example. I find that, tedious and really sort of sleep-inducing. Similarly, a plain sock, just knitting round and round and round and round on a sock that there's no pattern on. I can't stand it.
Right.
Just because I want to be engaged,
It's funny how people are different, because I enjoy that.
Well, I want to be engaged by it, you see, and I'm not engaged by it. I'm relaxed by it, and that's lovely. It's lovely to be relaxed by something, but that's not why I knit. I knit to be sort of engaged in the process, and it's relaxing in a different way. Because for me, it's all about that sort of brain freeze that I get where I can't think about anything else but the knitting.
Yeah.
And if all I'm doing is just that and that, then your
mind wanders, doesn't it? Yeah.
And wanders to sleep.
Yeah, I mean, we're all different though, aren't we? I enjoy just plain knitting, but then sometimes I want something more.
What does it for me with Let Lopey is...
Oh,
yeah, I know.
Well done.
I know, I'm a poet and I didn't even know it.
Don't do it.
Sorry. I was talking to Bryony about poets. I daughter Bryony, she's doing her A-levels at the moment, and she was talking to me about William Blake. And he was an artist too.
Was he? I didn't know that. I knew he was a poet. I didn't know he was an artist.
Well, I didn't even know he was a poet.
Oh, I knew he was a poet.
I'm such a heathen. when it comes to things like poetry, I'm not very good.
I'm not very good either, but I had heard of him.
I mean, I maybe knew that Byron was a poet, but I couldn't tell you what any of his poetry was.
Wasn't he a bit dodgy, Lord Byron?
Yes, yeah, we'll save that for another show.
He was a bit dodgy.
Yeah, so I was talking to Bryony about poetry, and we were talking about what makes poetry. Because a lot of times poetry doesn't rhyme.
No.
And again, I'm Mr. Heathen because
I know.
I expect my poems to rhyme.
I come from an era when poems rhyme. Well, I say that, but that's not true, is it? Because there's always been poems that don't rhyme. But I'm always associate poetry with rhyming, like you do, and I enjoy that melody of a poem rhyming. I can't get my head around the ones that don't rhyme because it's not. How is it a poem if they don't rhyme? It's just it's like a little story.
Yes.
I know I'm talking. I know a lot of you out there will say, "Okay, you're talking rubbish." And I understand
it is rubbish, and we understand that it's rubbish. But when you're not, you need to be fully immersed in that genre to fully appreciate its intricacies, and we're not. But what was so cool talking to Bryony about it was she was like saying to me, why did William Blake write about the things that he wrote about? Because he wrote about problems and issues and stuff that was going on and points that he wanted to make. And I said to her, the reason why he did it was this is a time before TV. It's a time really before printed newspapers. And so if you wanted your story, your point of view to get out there, if you could create something memorable that people would recite to each other, then your word could get out there. So it was a way of getting a message out. A bit like sort of, I suppose, X now.
Oh, gosh, what is that all about?
What a stupid name.
What is that all about? Why?
Well, it doesn't make sense, does it? Because, I mean, we don't even use it, but...
No, I've never used
Twitter
it.
tweet makes sense.
Yeah, what have you done if you've put a post on X?
It's still a tweet. I think it's still a tweet, anyway. Happy days.
Modern world.
Yeah, I know.
I've never tweeted and never want to
Let's
tweet.
go back to writing poetry when we want to make a point. Because it is sort of cool that you have to think about, structuring it in a way that is going to make it memorable. Anyway,
Yeah, that's true.
I'm certainly not a poet. This project is, though, it's just poetry. When you combine, it's half of it is in the brain. I'm sure it is, because you talk all the time about projects. You like everything to be perfect. Yarn, project, needles, all perfect. And I think it's when you combine a pattern that's been designed by someone from Iceland with Icelandic yarn and the perfect needles. It's like, yes.
Yeah.
The world is as it should be.
Yes.
So it's Godey. It's great. Looking forward to getting to the yoke, which is miles off because, of course, I've got the 2 sleeves to do. But I do enjoy knitting sleeves.
That's true. You see, if you're bored of doing that, you could start a sleeve.
I could, but I wouldn't say I'm bored.
Right.
I wouldn't say I'm bored. I'm just very relaxed. What else is on your needles?
Okay, so in my giant project bag that I made last year, I have my Scrappy reading shawl. And I am happy to report I'm on the bind off. Now, that might make you think, well, if you're on the bind off, why don't you just finish it and show it as finished? Well, it's quite a long bind off. And it's a picot bind off. So let me just pull it out.
It's funny. Kay showed it to me yesterday. And I said, oh, my goodness, you've done great. And she said, I haven't really. I said, yeah, I know, I was taking the mick.
Because I started the bind off that morning and...
Oh, you've done loads.
No, I was late getting up. Well, I say.
Yeah, 5:30. Had a sleep in.
I didn't wake up till 5:30 that morning. And by the time I got downstairs, made myself a cup of tea, checked emails as I do first thing. It was like 5:45, and then I'd only got half an hour before I had to make.
Oh my goodness!
Dan
the
a cup
morning's
of tea.
Gone.
I know the morning had gone, so I only really had 20 minutes to start the bind off. But I did another 20 minutes this morning, or it might have only been about 15. I was watching a video this morning on YouTube of this Japanese lady, and she was crocheting. And aren't they lovely, those videos? I can't remember her name or anything. I'm sorry, but it just popped up, and it's one of those where it's all subtitled. So you have to be looking at the screen the whole time. And so I didn't get very much done. She was crocheting these granny squares, and I was like, oh, I could sit and watch this lady crochet all day. I have started the picot bind off. So this is a design of mine called My Reading Shawl. And this is a version I've been knitting that is a scrappy version. So here's the sort of whole thing. It just keeps going, keeps going, keeps going, keeps going, and it finishes there. You can see it's ginormous, which is intentional, because this shawl, I designed this shawl to be something, really is like a blanket. It's like a blanket that you can wear, and I designed it to be used when you're cozying up and you're reading a lovely book. So here's the bind off. Like I say, it's a picot bind off. You can see I've started it there. And I've just been using whatever yarns I fancied for this. I've tried to vary it so that I get a mixture of brights, but then the brights are sort of toned down a little bit by some neutrals and a couple of sort of more mid-tones. So that it's got balance, so that when you look at it, it's not all like, whoa, they're all bright yarns. Or, I like to have that balance, that sort of yin and yang, I suppose. So that when you look at it, you'll see all the beautiful bright colours, but then they're interspersed and set off by the ones that are a little bit more muted.
It does look gorgeous.
Yeah, I'm really pleased with how it's turned out. And this is going to be a gift. And this is going to be packaged up with a couple of books, one a favourite of mine and a favourite of Dan's, and you're still thinking, aren't you, about yours?
Yeah.
Dan he suggested one the other day.
You can't say that.
Oh, don't put that in. That's boring. But I can't influence you. You've got to choose it, I suppose. I just felt a bit sorry for the recipient getting this book and thinking she had to read it.
I read loads of that book to you, and you loved it.
Right. Well, look, I'm not going to influence it. You choose the book. I'm going to choose mine, and I think I know which one I'm going to put in.
Right.
But I'll tell you next time, because this will be finished next time, and I'll show you it, blocked and lovely and everything. And maybe I won't show you the... No, maybe I will tell you the book. I don't know. Look, if I do, I do. If I don't, I don't.
Excellent viewing.
So I'm on the bind-up, and I've only done this much.
We were watching this programme yesterday. It's a true crime programme.
Oh, yeah.
And this lady got in this medium to try and help her with looking for her missing daughter. And the medium comes in and sits down and says, "Serious question. Where do you think your daughter is?" "Is it me? I asked you here for you to tell me where she was."
Yeah, this was from years ago. It was a disappearance back in the 90s, and the mother was very spiritual, and she'd had, I think, three or four mediums in over the years, because they didn't find her daughter initially. And yeah, I mean, I think it helps, whatever helps you deal with a situation like that, I think is,
I'm not remotely...
cool.
I'm not remotely...
I went to a medium donkeys years ago.
Well, I know, and a friend, my mum went to see
Did she?
Her friend...
Right.
Is a medium.
Right.
Reads cards.
Right.
She did a card reading.
Did she?
And I'm not kidding you, it's terrifying how specific and right it was.
Yeah.
To the point of predicting births.
Right.
And it happening. Crazy.
Well, I don't remember everything that this medium said to me. I was in my 20s at the time. But a couple of things that she said have proven to be correct. So you just don't... I don't know. I don't know. Is it all just woo-woo? Is it like, nonsense?
Well, the truth always lies somewhere in the middle.
Something in it. Yeah, I don't dismiss anything, So yeah. Oh no!
Happened?
My shawl's fallen on the floor.
Yeah, but nothing's happened. It's fine.
Where's the other needle?
It's too large for there to be any disasters. You're safe.
There's a lot of binding off to do, but I nearly lost it on the other end. It's just too traumatic, this. So I've still got a good bit of time to get this bind off done. I'm not, there's no desperate need or anything, so that's good. So I'm just going to do 20 minutes, half an hour each day, and it'll be done, won't it? Within probably a few days.
The yarns are so gorgeous. Is it just scraps?
Yes, I've already said
Yeah,
that.
sorry. I was just literally...
It's just leftovers, but a lot of them are yarns that I've dyed.
Oh, okay.
I would probably say 80% of this is yarns that I've dyed, which is another lovely thing about it, isn't it? It makes it very personal, and I'll tell her all this when I package it up. But yeah, this shawl is knitted using fingering weight held double, so round about a DK. I think fingering weight held double is a bit heavier than a DK, but it's there or thereabouts. And I'm using, well, I think it's 4.5 mils from memory. Yeah, 4.5 millimetre. Because I don't like my stitches to look too sloppy, and I think anything above a sort of 4.5 when it's DK weight, again, it depends on how tight you knit. But for me, I wouldn't work DK weight on a 5 millimetre. That'd be too loose for me. So 4.5 millimetres seems to be perfect for fingering weight held double. So this will be done next time.
That's exciting.
And
that is exciting.
Yeah, that'll be really cool, because it's a really special gift, and hopefully, well, I know it will be appreciated. I think it's always nice, isn't it, when you create things handmade as gifts.
Now, I've seen something actually that I'll mention it in detail at the end of the show.
Right.
But if you're a Bakery Bear patron, do not miss our patron exclusive show, which is coming up on Sunday. This week.
I'll
talk about it in detail at the end. But just hold that bag up a minute.
This wasn't that.
I know.
Oh.
But what this reminded me of was it last year? It was last year. You did the Beach Days bag.
I did.
And the cross stitch.
Right there.
So the Summer of Stitching last year.
That bag there.
Took everyone on a journey into... Actually, it wasn't just that, it was the Beachcomber socks.
Yes.
Started with the Beachcomber socks, and then you moved on to the lollipop
Yeah.
And then you...
Yeah, I designed this cross stitch.
Yeah.
So we all cross stitched this together, and then we made it into a bag.
Yep.
So we patchworked that front piece and then made it into this beautiful project bag. And I used all Liberty quilting cotton.
That was last year's summer.
That was last year's summer of stitching.
This year's summer of stitching.
What's in there?
We will be revealing everything that is going to be taking place.
Yes.
And it's the most joined up summer of stitching ever. The way that you're doing it.
Yes.
It's like, come on.
I'm doing it slightly different this year.
We're going to talk about
I'm going to talk about it all.
On Sunday.
On Sunday.
On the Patron exclusive show.
On the Pop Show. I'm going to tell you what the projects are. Not specific details, but you will know what it is. There's 2 projects. You'll know what it is we're going to be creating. You'll know the theme. So...
Full details.
Yes.
Coming up.
That'll be super exciting, won't it?
And I'll tell you when, at the end of the show. Stay tuned to the end of the show, and I'll tell you when that Patron exclusive show is going to be available to watch.
Yes.
So I am knitting.
What else are you knitting, Dan?
My second pair.
Ooh.
No. My second sock.
I'm going to get a blocker.
And no, it's already on a blocker. Look. Aha!
What?
Look at this.
Oh,
doesn't it look gorgeous? This is one of my favourite socks of all time.
Is it?
I love this sock. It's the Sherwood socks. Kay designed these for me specially, and they then ended up going out in our Platinum collection a couple of years ago, I think it was. And the motif on the back is the arrows fired from Robin Hood's quiver. And then...
No, his bow. His quiver is what you keep the arrows in, isn't it?
I was meaning he was fired from, so taken from the quiver.
Oh, right.
Arrow taken from the quiver, fired. Anyway, the front is... There's the intertwined...
Yeah.
Cables, which is the bit where Robin and Marion hug and they spin upwards as they're like coming down. Oh, I know it all. And then what's the bit in the middle? I forgot.
I can't remember.
I think that's the woods.
Oh, I don't know. I can't remember what the lacy bit represents. It's a while since I designed.
Or is that the water?
Oh, I don't remember.
Because there's the waterfall.
There is a waterfall.
Where he had the stunt double.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
He had a bottom double. Kevin Costner, didn't he? Which is hilarious.
I need one of those.
And that's the bar. You don't. That's the bar. I'd like one, please.
You really don't. But let's move on.
Let's move on.
I'm knitting this gorgeous yarn.
Yes.
It's amazing because it's green and it makes me think of Sherwood Forest.
I dyed this one.
And do you know what? I always remember going on holiday when I was a kid and we used to drive through Sherwood Forest and I used to get immensely excited.
I've never driven through Sherwood Forest.
Because we used to drive down that way.
Isn't it lovely?
We used to drive down that side of the country because if you go down the M1, you're on the wrong side of the country really for getting to Dover. So it was in the old days before all the big main roads were there. Right. So we would literally drive pretty much through Sherwood Forest. Right. I loved it. I've
never been to Sherwood Forest. I'd quite like to.
As like a 7-year-old, I'm like looking out the windows, and I'm seriously looking out the windows, thinking I'm going to see Robin Hood. I mean,
even though sort of a fictional character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. But I've cast on the second sock.
Yes.
And I've nearly done the leg. I've only got a repeat and a half to do, and then I've done the leg.
So it's a short leg. So
a short leg.
These will be for me, and they're shorties.
So yesterday, Kay says, when are you going to finish those black socks you're knitting? Because I want to wear them. I'm going, what black socks? She said, the black socks that you're knitting, you know the ones. I'm like, I've got no idea what you're talking about. They were already done and in a drawer.
I'd totally forgotten that he'd finished them. It was a Whispers in the Walls pair, wasn't it? Yeah. And he'd used
the
yarn again
one.
that I dyed. No, it's not serious.
Always.
It's, after all this time.
Yes.
That's not serious. That's the other fella, Snape.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
And they were in my drawer and I'd totally forgotten. So I had them on last night. I had them on this morning with my pyjamas. Beautiful.
What were you going to say before you said pyjamas? I think you were going to say...
With my pyjamas. I just
like you were going to say
stumbled over it.
Japamas.
No, with my new pyjamas. My new pair of pyjamas. Because, right...
She's like a moving blue sky.
Well, I have this real issue with modern pyjamas.
Oh, don't we all?
They've all got those silly cinched-in legs, you know, that's like a tracksuit bottom. That it's cinched in at the bottom. I cannot even stand them.
It's just awful.
I just like pyjamas that are straight, you know, straight-legged like that. Yeah. Straight down, no fuss, no nothing. You know, lightweight cotton. I like the soft cotton, not the, like, crisp cotton.
Yeah.
Anyway, I've been struggling to find some, and I've been wearing a pair to oblivion that were a Christmas pair from Sainsbury's about 3 years ago. It had Wham on the front. Anyway, I thought I had to find another pair, and I did in Sainsbury's again. And they're just sort of plain pale blue, but they're the right cut, the right fit, and I'm like... Yes.
And they look great. They look really
They're
great.
a bit pale. I prefer pyjamas that are a bit darker.
No.
But, yeah,
They're lovely.
so...
But
Pyjama tangent.
Lovely, lovely socks. Amazing yarn. The round needles, not square. Chow goo. I told Kate to try these. She's tried them. She loves them too.
Oh, get on, man.
So, yeah, perfect.
So that'll be another pair of socks finished fairly soon.
Very, very soon. What else is on your needles?
Well, talking of socks, I've got another pair.
Oh, who for?
These are for me.
Oh.
And I've finished one sock, and I'm on...
That's so mean.
Yeah, I've got a finished pair right over there, and I've just cast on another pair for you. I cannot knit socks fast enough for Dan.
It's a fresh socks.
It's like I get so stressed because I'm like, I've got to finish this pair and knit another pair because he wears through them. And I've got to keep knitting socks. I've got to keep doing...
It's only this year that you've been
If I had nothing else to do, I'd just knit you socks all the time.
Because you do like knitting socks, so that's really good.
Socks.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. So these socks are a shorty pair for me. I showed you these socks, but I'd only really just started them when I showed them to you, and it's a few episodes ago. But this is a single colour version of my Scrappy Quilt Socks, which I'm going to show you another finished pair of those in what's off my needles, and this pattern actually will be out on the next show. I'm sure that's right, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, this pattern will be out on the next show, which is really exciting.
And this is the super duper like celebratory anniversary.
So this is a pattern. Here's the finished sock. So this pattern I designed for the 10th anniversary of the Bakery Bears. So on the 8th of May, it will be 10 years that we've been doing the show, which is just amazing, isn't it? So to honour that and in celebration of that, I thought I'd design a pair of socks and release it on the day, so on the 10th anniversary. You will see the show 2 days after, on the 10th, but we actually film it on the 8th, which will be the 10th anniversary. So I will be releasing these on the 8th of May. But I've done 2 versions in scraps, in leftovers and minis, and I'm going to show you another one of those later. But I wanted to see what it would look like in a solid colour. So I dyed up this yarn, and isn't it the most beautiful colour? And I've just knit a pair in a solid colour, and I think it looks fantastic. So I wanted to show it you just in a solid colour because I know there are people out there that don't like scrappy socks. And I didn't want to disregard that whole chunk of people who don't like knitting scrappy socks. And because I felt that this pattern would really show off well with a single colour. I think it's sometimes difficult if you are a visual person to imagine what it would look like. The stitch pattern just looks fantastic, doesn't it? I love it. So the stitch pattern was designed to represent half triangle quilts, which I think it does really well. So this colour I'm going to check in my little book because I dyed this myself. And I used 3 shades of pink and 1 yellow to create it. I made a note of it because I loved the colour so much. I didn't want to forget how to do it, and if I hadn't written it down, I wouldn't have a clue. So I used Landscape Heath, I used Dharma Valentine Blush, and I used Landscape Galar. And then I over-dyed it with just a tiny bit of Jacquard Sun Yellow. So those are the colours that I used. I mean, I'm not going to give you specifics on how I dyed it because that would take forever. But those are the shades that I used. And it produced this gorgeous, pinky, slightly peachy shade.
I tell you what it makes me think of.
Just lovely. What does it make you think of?
Salmon.
Yeah, it is like a salmon pink. You're right. It's very much like salmon pink. I eat a lot of tinned salmon.
It's good for you.
Another random thing. I have tinned salmon a couple of times a week.
Because you know it's good for you.
It's good for you. I enjoy it. And yes, and I do have that quite often. Yeah, so I've finished one sock. I actually cast this on quite some time ago, 7th of February. And then I set it aside to get the other ones finished. So I picked it back up now. I finished the first sock the other day and I've cast on the second one. I've got the rib done. So again, these will be finished for the next show because I want all 3 pairs done for when the pattern goes out. I've only put photos in the pattern of the 2 Scrappy versions because the pattern is designed as a Scrappy sock. But, you know, I will input this one onto Ravelry so that anybody that goes to look at the pattern, you'll be able to look at what, you know, see what it looks like in a solid colour. And I'll make sure that this sock as well goes on the project page, that there's a photo of it on the pattern page rather. But yeah, I'm really enjoying knitting this. This is the 3rd time I've knit these socks now, and I'm not bored in the least. I've absolutely loved knitting them, and it has gone through testing. It's all been tested, so thank you so much to my lovely testers. And one of my testers said that she was planning a Christmas pair, so that's really exciting. I think that's the fun thing about it. When I show you the one that's a Scrappy one, you can think, oh, I'm going to do one that's like Valentine's and pick out all your pinks and reds, or Easter or Christmas or Halloween or all of these things. And I think that's really fun, isn't it? To go into your stash, pick out a few yarns and knit yourself a lovely pair of quilty socks. So yeah, I'm really enjoying knitting through it again, and I love the colour of the yarn, and I've already stolen a couple of bits out of the middle for other Scrappy projects that I've been working on. I'm like, oh yeah, I'll have a bit of that, and I've stolen a bit out of the middle, but I'll have loads left over anyway, which is great.
It's such an exciting pattern, I think, because you've spent so much time and effort trying to make it special. I have spent a lot of time, yeah, just because of how important it is. Because it's a special anniversary. And the other thing I'll say actually is we're going to have a knit along for these socks, which I can't remember the last time we did a knit along for a specific pattern. Yeah. Such a long time, and some of our patrons requested a knit along. I said, well, let's do it. So this is a knit along for everyone. Yeah. So I'll be giving details of that on the next show because the knit along will have started, but it's going to start on the day the pattern is launched. Yeah. And then I'll let you know when it's going to run to. It'll be around about a month-ish, I would have thought, because that's sort of enough for a pair of socks, I think. And there'll be a Ravelry page, you know, on the Bakery Bears Ravelry page, and I'll give you a hashtag for Instagram and all of those things. So I'll tell you all the details of that next time, and I'm going to have a prize ready to show you as well. Kay sucked me in on the whole notebook thing in the
look what
bag.
I gave Dan. Did you see the flag? I gave this to Dan. Oh, he's very lucky. Why are you doing that?
Gold.
Oh, right.
Always believe in you.
Yeah, it's one of... Look at that. I'll let him have this, aren't I? All right. It's one of those... That name there.
You're indestructible. I've only just got it. Because when they dig it out of the ground...
It looks exactly the same. Gold's amazing, isn't it? You know, it can have been in the ground for hundreds, thousands of years, and you pull it out and it's perfect. Exactly as it was. It doesn't degrade at all. I think that's just amazing. So yeah, Dan's got his own little sock book, a golden sock book.
I'm also adding details on jumpers into my sock book.
Oh, are you really? So it's just a little project book. Then.
Yeah, well, I think so, because I'm going to do jumpers at the back and others at the front. Yes.
You're going to do?
Yes, indeed. It's just so useful, and I should have really started it before, because it just saves you, like, thinking, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And also, as well, with jumpers, with the different yarns that you use, different needle size, all of those types of things, it's going to be really cool, you know, over the years, developing up this glossary that, you know, keeps
I
it
find
all
them
in
invaluable for my sock knitting, because I knit so many socks, I design so many socks.
Join us in our mini notebook revolution.
Yes. I want more, and I can't wait for new colours to come out. Yay.
Right. When Kay said she was going to develop a brand new series called Kay's Classic Bakes, she wasn't just paying lip service to the word classic, because just think about all that she's done so far. Amazing individual lemon meringue pies. I mean, spectacular. Hot cross bun loaf. Bun loaf.
That's been so popular.
Just amazing. And now, as we reach the midpoint of the series, how could she possibly top all that? Well, quite simply, by making something seasonal, something regional, and something full of deliciousness from my childhood. This is Kay's Classic Bakes.
As I've grown older, I've come to realise I am at heart an old-fashioned girl. Put me in a kitchen baking something wonderful and I am in heaven. There is something very special about baking. It's like chemistry as the ingredients come together to hopefully create something wonderful. This year, I'm going to share with you 6 of my favourite bakes. Along the way, I'm going to add some little twists in my attempt for perfection. Welcome to Kay's Classic Bakes. So yes, here I am back in the kitchen, ready to make another classic bake. So today's creation is a really exciting one. It's something very regional to an area that both Dan and I were born in. And it's also very seasonal because this was traditionally eaten around Whitsuntide. And Whitsuntide, if you don't know, it's also called Whitsunday or Pentecost. And it's the 7th Sunday, I'm sure I've got that right, it's the 7th Sunday after Easter. So it varies each year depending on when Easter falls. And this year it falls on, I believe it's the 19th of May. I think that's the right date, around then, if I've not got that spot on. And we're really close to that date now, so it's completely appropriate that I'm going to be making this. I'm going to make Yorkshire curd tart. This is a traditional Yorkshire recipe. It originates actually in the 17th century and it was created as a way of using up excess cheese curds from the cheese making process. It's effectively a cheesecake, but it's not made in the way that you have probably had cheesecake before. It's spiced with lemon and nutmeg, and it's got currants in there as well. So Yorkshire curd tart is what we're making today, and the most exciting thing that I haven't told you is that we're actually going to be making the cheese curds ourselves. You really just can't get cheese curds these days. I mean, maybe if you've got a dairy local to you, you might be able to get some. But generally speaking, it's not something that you would find commonly in supermarkets. Now, I've seen recipes that substitute in either ricotta cheese or cottage cheese. If I was going to use one of those, I would probably go for ricotta instead of cottage cheese. But neither one of them really are an exact match for making the curds yourself, and it's so easy to make it yourself. So I need to stop waffling, don't I? I've gone into waffle mode. We need to get on, and I need to let you know everything that you're going to need to make your delicious curd tart. So here on my table, I've got my ingredients on this side and then the kind of notions, if you like, over here. So the ingredients, first of all, I've got some butter, and I'm using my favourite butter, which I've mentioned before, is Country Life. I always use salted butter in baking. Some people prefer to use unsalted. It's entirely up to you, but I always use salted butter. We've then got caster sugar, and caster sugar is not always called caster sugar in other countries. I think it might be called superfine sugar, maybe. It's basically, if you know, it's like a standard sugar, but much finer granules. We've then got milk. Now, you're going to need whole cow's milk. I didn't know how to say that. So yeah, so full fat is what I want to say. I know in other countries it's not called whole milk, but it's full fat milk. And I've got 2 pints, which 2 pints is just over 1 litre. Now we've got flour. I'm using spelt flour. If you don't want to use spelt flour, you just want some plain standard flour, not self-raising, just plain. I've got currants, nutmeg. Now, when I say I've got nutmeg, it's whole nutmeg. If you've never seen a nutmeg before, this is what it looks like. You don't want to buy this ready ground because it loses all of its flavour. It's just one of those spices, I think, that just does not last well once it's been ground. But you're only going to need one and not even all of one. I've then got some lemons. Now, I've got 4 lemons here. I'm probably not going to use them all, but what you're actually going to need is you're going to need the zest of 1 lemon, and then you're going to need about 3 tablespoons of lemon juice. I've got 4 eggs, and then I do have some baking powder. We're only going to be using a little smidgen of this, but just a little touch of baking powder. And then over to our sort of equipment. So I've got a weighing scale, I've got my Tart tin, which is a 9-inch or 23 centimetre or 9-inch Tart tin, and it's one of these ones with the loose bottom. And this one is a really heavy gauge, it's non-stick, and it works brilliantly well with this. You don't need to line it, you don't need to butter it or oil it. If you've got a really heavy gauge non-stick Tart tin, you don't need to do any of that, it's just ready to go. We've then got a piece of cheesecloth or muslin. Mine is a traditional sort of cheesecloth. If you don't have this and don't want to go out and buy it especially, then you can use a tea towel. If you've got a tea towel that's got quite an open weave on it, you can use that, because we are going to scald it before we use it anyway. We're just going to pour some boiling water over it to make sure it's super clean. And then I've got a couple of bowls. I've got 2 large mixing bowls here and a colander for draining. So anything, a big sieve or a colander, anything like that. So that's everything we're going to need. So the first thing we need to do is make those cheese curds. Right, so we need to make those cheese curds, and it's really, really simple. All I'm going to do is I'm going to put all of my milk, so all of this 2 pints, into a saucepan. I'm going to heat it up, and you want to heat it up. If you've got a thermometer, the sort of temperature that I've found traditionally that it tells you to heat it up to is what's called blood temperature, so it's about 37 degrees C. Or 100 Fahrenheit, I think it is. But if you've not got a thermometer, you really don't need one. Don't go out and buy it specially. I find if I just heat it up until it's not simmering, but you can see that it's a little bit steamy, and if you just put your little finger in and out quickly, it'll feel not boiling hot, but more than just warm, if you know what I mean. You just want to heat it up so that it's not simmering, it's not boiling. Okay, if you've got a thermometer, you can use that and heat it to around about 100 degrees Fahrenheit. So I'm going to pop this in a saucepan, heat it up, and then I'm going to bring it back and show you how we make the curds. Okay, so my milk now is at that temperature. You can see, you might be able to see a little bit of steam coming off. And what I've done is I have put my cheesecloth over the top of my colander that's over a bowl, and I've scalded this with boiling water so we know that that's super clean. And then what I've got here is the juice of the lemons. I just squeezed enough of them until I've actually got more than enough here. I only need 3 tablespoons. I've tried this using the lemon juice that you get in bottles, like Jif lemon juice or the equivalent. It doesn't work. You do need fresh lemon juice. So I'm going to put into my milk 3 tablespoons of my lemon juice, and what will happen is the milk solids will separate from the liquid, and this is where you get curds and whey. And to produce curds and whey you need an acid, and that's what our lemon juice is. It's an acid. So just give it a little stir and then just leave it. You can see it's already started to separate. Can you see on my spoon? Just leave it for about 10 minutes and you'll find that you'll have like all of the liquid will be underneath, and then you'll have all of the solids kind of floating on the top. I mean, if you look in the pan here, can you see it's all started to separate out? It doesn't take very long at all. And if you've ever seen cheese being made, they make them in these big vats, don't they? And they'll pour the rennet in, and it more or less happens sort of, there and then they sort of cut it, don't they, into big chunks and pull out the curds, let them drain through cheese moulds. and then that goes on to be cheese. Okay, so that's had about 10 minutes now, and you can see on my spoon it's covered in all of the curds. And if you pull the sort of solids to one side, you can see that the liquid, and you might not be able to see actually because it's just filling in, but the liquid underneath, it's not completely clear, but it's definitely not milk. So we now need to drain this through our muslin. So I'm just going to pour really gently into the colander here, and I've got that bowl underneath, so the whey is going to gather in the bowl and then it'll leave me with the curds in the cheesecloth. So this is still hot, so be careful when you do this. There we go. So you can see the pan has got all the sort of remnants of the whey in there. I am going to just scrape those out. Now this amount of milk will give you round about 200 grams of curds. When I've made this before, sometimes it's a bit under, sometimes it's a bit over, but round about 200 grams. So I'm just going to make sure I've got them all. And we just need to now leave this to drain, and all of the whey will gather in the bowl underneath, and then it's going to leave us with the curds in our cheesecloth. It needs to cool, and we need to drain as much liquid off as possible. So all I do is I just stick it to one side in the kitchen while I go ahead and make the pastry, and then we'll come back and check it and see where it's up to, and just make sure that all of that liquid has gone through. So I'm just going to set this aside, and then I'm going to get everything ready and we'll make our pastry. Okay, so whilst our curds are cooling down, we are going to make the pastry. So I've got everything ready here. I've got a nice roomy bowl, my weighing scales, and I've got my tin ready, which, as I said before, you don't need to line it, you don't need to grease it if you've got a really good tin, which mine is. It's heavy gauge and it's non-stick. So into my bowl I am going to put 150 grams of plain flour. I often get asked about kitchen scales because I think particularly in America things are measured in cups, and scales are not really used too much, but that's certainly not the case historically here. I think recipes now are coming with a conversion for cups more often, but I still use the measurements because I just, having grown up measuring everything, I just think that measuring it with a cup, that's sort of, to me, is debatable as to what's full. Do you pile it up? Do you level it off? Do you pack it down? So I just weigh everything and then we know. There we go, 150. Now I am going to add just a little smidge of baking powder. So this is a 1/4 teaspoon measure, not a fairly level just underneath, so not quite a 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder in there. And then I'm going to add some caster sugar. So this is going to be a sweet pastry base. So into here I'm going to put 30 grams of caster sugar. So it's not a whole lot of sugar at all. So I'm just going to lift that up and give that a little mix around just to incorporate everything. And pop it back on zero-wise. And then we're going to add in the butter. So I want 80 grams of butter. So this butter, it's not straight from the fridge, but it's nice and firm. It shouldn't be super soft. That's closer. I just need a little bit more. Oh, 70, oh, 80. No, it's just clicked over to 80. And then I'm just going to chop this up a little bit. So just get my knife. I could never make pastry without just a normal, it's just a what do you call these knives? It's just a knife you eat your food with. Don't know what you call them. Right, so now I'm going to rub that in. like you would do when you're making any sort of pastry. I kind of have to stand on my tiptoes when I do this, so I've just gone taller. And it's not that I'm super short, I'm not, but I just find that to get your arms into a bowl, I just need to be a bit taller, so I always end up standing on my tiptoes when I do pastry. Okay, so my pastry now looks like fine breadcrumbs. And over here in my little bowl, I've just got an egg, just one egg, I'm just beating. You might not need all of this egg. It depends on the size of your egg, really. I'll probably use about half of this and we'll see what it's like, because we don't want to make a dough. It wants to still look a bit breadcrumby. So I'm gonna go in with maybe half of it. So just use a fork and just flick it around, just stir it through. So we want that egg to be distributed all the way through, but we want it to maintain its sort of crummy texture. And by doing that, it makes the pastry really lovely and crumbly when you eat it. It wants to be on the point of becoming dough, but not quite there. And if you just grab a bit and push it together, it does come together. That's how we want it. What we're going to do now is bring in our tart tin, and we're going to line this by basically piling it all into the tart tin and then pushing it down. So I'm going to spoon it, sort of pile it around the edges like this. Just pile it all around the sides. And this is so much easier than rolling out pastry, and there's much less peril. You know, I think some people worry about making pastry, and I understand that, but there's no need to worry with this. It's sort of like a cross between a biscuit base on a traditional cheesecake and making a shortbread. You know, it's a combination really of the two of those. So I'm just going to get a bit of flour on my hands, and I'm going to start off and just push it into the sides. I want to push it so that we get quite a lot in the, you know, that bit where the tart tin goes from like that to like that, you know, the sort of corner. So I'm going to work around like this, just making sure that I've got a good covering on the sides. We can always adjust things. We can go back and adjust it when we've done the bottom. But that's a fairly good covering. And then the bottom portion now, I can use my spoon actually. We're just going to go over the base and make sure the base has got a good covering. And if you use your spoon, you can get sort of into that edge like that. And just work your way around, pushing it down until we've got a nice compact base. The other thing is, we are not going to blind bake this. I think this is another genius thing because it has less faff. But what we are going to do is, before we put it in the oven, we're going to preheat our oven. And whilst the oven is preheating, I'm going to put a baking sheet into the oven, or a baking tray in my case, and let that preheat. And then we're going to put the tart onto that preheated baking sheet. And what that does is it gives instant woof of heat to the base of the tart, and it should avoid any soggy bottoms. There we go, I think we're about there. So you can see we've got that completely covered. The white speckles you can see are just the flour, which is totally fine, that's not a bother. So that's all ready now for our filling. But before we put the filling in, we need to give this a good chill, because that's the other thing. If this is chilled when we put the filling in and when then we put it in the oven, you'll get a much better result. Everything I've done so far, you could do the day before, but what I'm actually going to do, and what I've done before, is I'm going to cheat a little bit and I'm going to put my tart tin into the freezer for about half an hour, and that works perfectly. Okay, so that is our curds made, and they are just finishing off draining and cooling. Our tart tin is lined and that's having a chill. So come back in part 2 when we are going to be making the delicious filling. We're going to be piling it into that lined tart tin, and getting it in the oven, and then of course we get to eat it. So I'll see you back soon.
Oh my goodness, a baking show and a science lesson.
Indeed.
I mean, it's a bit weird, isn't it?
It's a bit weird. It is a bit weird.
But cool. Really cool.
Very cool.
And like, so delicious.
Don't be grossed out by it.
No. Because if you sort of think about the things that you eat, there's so many things that you could gross yourself out over if you stopped and thought about them.
Absolutely.
You know, the most important thing is using everything, isn't it? And enjoying everything. And
Yeah. You know, if you eat cheese, then this is how cheese is made. So
yeah. It's the same thing.
you know, it's such a simple process as well. And
such an old
honestly,
recipe.
it's so delicious. Really, really old recipe. And you know what? It tastes old. You know, with that.
Do you know what I think mincemeat does too? You know, mincemeat always comes across as
because dried fruit was used a lot back then, wasn't it? And you know, in this context, there's not a lot of currants in there at all. If you don't like dried fruit, don't be put off by that, because there's really not a lot. And what happens during the cooking is they just all become really soft, don't they? They're not hard at all. You don't really even notice they're there, so to speak.
Putting it together is cool. You're doing that in part 2.
Yes.
Putting it together, getting it in the oven. What a start to a truly classic bake. I can't wait to get it in the oven and get it in my tummy.
Yes, and we've still got a chunk in the freezer.
Too right.
Oh, I might take it out.
Oh, maybe.
We'll save it. We'll save it.
But you see, I don't know if you're the same, but if you've got something lovely in the freezer, you want to save it just for that moment.
I know.
When it's like, oh...
Yeah.
Yes.
When you really need it.
Yeah. I tell you something. Nothing makes me happier than knowing I've got like 4 portions of bread.
Which you haven't at the moment. I'm going to make some on Saturday.
That's totally fine.
Is that okay?
It's more than fine. It's
You've
more
got
than fine.
some to keep you going till then.
Well,
I made myself a sandwich last weekend. And I know.
Stop
look.
everything.
Look. I know that might sound like what?
It's huge.
I have them every day, but I've really not eaten bread for quite some years.
Because you can't.
Because I struggle with normal bread.
Yeah.
It really bothers my tummy. So I just stopped. I just got bored. I just got fed up of trying all these gluten-free breads that I didn't like.
Oh, yeah.
That were just like cake.
Yeah, crumbly
and
and weird.
Weren't very nice.
No.
So I just gave in. And, you know, I stopped eating bread.
And then what brought you back, Kate?
But, you know, you all know I make spelt bread for Dan. I've been making it for years. And I just said, you know what, I'm going to try it. Because, no, I had it. What did I have it in?
Kay had the hot cross bun loaf.
Oh, yes.
And she tried it with great trepidation because she was worried that it was going to mess with her tummy.
Yeah,
it didn't. And she's like, right.
I was fine with it.
Get the bread out.
I was like, do you know what? I'm going to have a sandwich. So I did last weekend. Oh, it was like...
It was a parade beforehand.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, military drummers.
I made a fresh loaf on Saturday, had it for my lunch on Saturday, and I had ham, cheese and coleslaw.
Imagine if you'd not had that for 10 years.
It was like a sandwich of the gods.
Yeah. Amazing.
It was...
Well, spelt bread.
And I said to Dan after, I made it last for ages. I was eating this sandwich for ages.
It's spectacular.
And I was fine with it. My tummy was fine. So that's now my weekend treat.
Even if I could eat the other type of bread, I wouldn't want it.
No.
Because spelt bread is so much nicer.
Fresh spelt bread is the best thing ever.
But what's so amazing about it is it lasts forever.
It does last, yeah.
And also, it just never ever seems to go off.
Well, it would do eventually.
But
it does last really well.
I've been eating it after a week.
Yeah, and Dan just toasts it and it's
fine.
You know, it's okay. So yeah, that's now my Saturday treat.
Look, that's enough food talk because we've got like an absolute load.
An absolute load.
Great English.
Yes.
I told you I was a poet. So it's time that I ask. Kay Jones, what's off your needles?
I have 3 things, so that's very exciting.
I have one thing that counts for 3.
Oh, yes. Do you want to talk about yours first?
No.
Okay. So my first thing is Dan's opal socks.
Mm.
I finished them. So these are the opal Harry Potter yarn, and it's the Lupin colourway. And the second sock it didn't do the crazy pooling thing like the first one because the sequence of colours was different. The only sort of bit of pooly was here. Can you see the splodgy bit here? So it's hardly anything really. But what happened with this second sock was... Is this the second sock? No.
She can't tell.
No, that is the second sock.
Right.
So what happened with this one is there was a break in the yarn, there was a knot, which is fine. But what had happened is a big chunk of the colour had gone. The colour sequence had gone. So it sort of jumped. I think there should have been another pink somewhere in here, but the pink was sort of gone. I forget which bit was gone now. I think it was the pink. So it lost the sequence a little bit. But I don't think you can really tell because it's such a busy colour, isn't it? And I think they look great actually.
Brilliant.
And I just had this much left. I weighed it, I think there was about 8 grams, and I thought, gosh, that's not a lot left. I normally have a bit more left from 100 grams for Dan. But I think what I'd done historically with this is I think I'd stolen a couple of bits for mitered squares out of it, so that explains
They feel
it.
like proper opal.
Yeah.
And you've got another skein of proper opal, haven't you?
I have got another skein. I've got a couple of more skeins of old vintage opal, so that's
You might as well
good.
just use them because we know they last.
Yeah, I know. So yeah,
Which
but I
is
think
wonderful.
they look great, don't they? They're
They do.
all done.
I
So
love
you
the
can-
pink.
Yeah, the pink sort of lifts it. What I will say, so it was the Lupin, Harry Potter opal Lupin. I don't know why they think this is Lupin. That, doesn't remotely make me think of Lupin. The only thing I suppose is the grey when he turns into a werewolf. But the other colours, I don't know where they've got their inspiration from. Whether it's just from that picture there. But there's tons of blue in there and there's not any blue in the... Do you know what I mean? I think that's a bit random.
Yeah.
As to their inspiration. But
anyway,
it's
lovely socks.
Lovely socks. You can have
Thank
those
you.
now,
Wonderful,
all finished.
wonderful. That's lovely.
Got a tiny bit left that I will save.
What else is off your needles?
So my second finished thing is another pair of socks, and it's the second Scrappy Quilt Socks that I mentioned. So it's these ones, aren't they just gorgeous? So for this pair, I used a set of minis from Polka Dot Creek. And this is part of Shelley's blanket club for this year. And it's all peaches. What month was it? April. Which we're in, aren't we? We're still in April. And I finished them in April, so that's cool. And I've got little bits left. You can see I've tucked them into the ball band. And these will be going into a Scrappy project. So that's brilliant. And I'm thrilled with these. I have taken photographs of these and I have put details in the pattern of this pair as well. So yeah, all finished and just gorgeous. I was thrilled with the yarn. I think it's just perfect for this sort of project. So it looks
amazing.
If you have taken part in Shelley's blanket club, but maybe you're not doing a blanket, then it's perfect for this pattern, just with little bits left over to put into Scrappy projects, another Scrappy project. So I think that's just absolutely perfect. So loved working with the yarn, thought it was great. And I have got some more of her minis as well that she kindly sent me at the same time, but I am tempted. I don't know when she's going to be putting in like the second half of the year. I'll have to check her shop, or I'll have to ask her, because I am tempted to get more colours for the rest of the year. But yeah, fantastic. And like I said earlier, that pattern will be out 8th of May. Oh, so Dan Jones.
Yes.
What's off your needles?
Look, it's the Aaron Harper Gansey.
Da, da, da.
It's all finished.
Get my hair out of the way.
All blocked. So finished off up here, then knitted a long collar, and then it was then folded over and Kay seamed it down for me.
It's one of those folded ones.
Which is fun.
See? So the only thing I did for this was I sewed down the collar for Dan, and I helped you with a stitch under the arm that had gone awry.
Yeah, because basically, sorry. I messed up slightly. The underarms went amazing.
Yeah.
Everything went amazing apart from the last hole. You've kitchened it under the arms. You've got a hole at the front, hole at the back.
Yeah.
So I did the first two, boom. Second two, did the first one, no problem. Got to the last one, and something just went weird. I don't know if I got a stitch caught or something. Anyway, Kay helped me pull it through the other side and sew it down, so that was all fine.
Yeah.
So all went great. I do love, actually, I think my most favourite
sleeve length is perfect.
I've totally got the sleeve length down. I mean, I'm really happy with how I size things now, which is really good.
I like it to be, I don't like them down here. I like it just to be on my wrist.
Only unfortunate thing was when it was blocked in really sort of lukewarm water. It's run.
The blue.
You can see it.
Yeah, you can. The blue just ran
into the cream,
and I blocked it in the bath. Just with really lukewarm water with just a little bit of wool wash. And as soon as I saw that the blue was bleeding, I got it out of there because I panicked, and I rolled it in a towel and I stamped on it just to get the water out to stop it doing anything. But it has coloured the white a bit, definitely.
The worst bit is here.
Yeah.
And the issue is, I said to Kay, I know why it's worse. It's because of the floats.
Because you've got blue floats underneath.
And there's nothing else you could do.
No.
I mean, you couldn't be every one of those.
No.
Pulling your yarn apart and then,
no. And I think it's fine.
Because it's fine up there. That one looks
this bit's
proper.
Okay.
And the bits down here
and
look
the bits
fine.
down here are okay.
Yeah.
But definitely when you look up here, and it really panics me. I'm like, oh no, I'm going to have a pale blue instead of a white.
It's a minor thing, but it would make me think twice again, to be honest.
It's this long. Oh, I fell over. But it's a nice... it's like
I've got the vapours.
I'm a menopausal woman, which I am.
Stop it.
Oh, it's hideous. It's hideous, everybody. Oh.
She's wonderful.
Well, you're very kind, but yeah. So, and it goes, you can see it's all on the back. It's lovely.
My favourite bit is this bit.
Yes, I think everybody said that. Well, you posted a picture in our Facebook group and everybody loved this spiral bit.
It's just brilliant.
It's like a candy cane, not even a candy cane, is it? It's like a rope twisted around another rope or something. Yeah. It's really lovely.
I think the only thing that I would say about the design is there was a couple of issues that I had to ask, and they answered them quick, and they were mistakes in the pattern.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, there's just no need for 20 stitches under the arms.
There was a lot of underarm stitches here.
There's no need for it.
Graft.
I don't understand why.
There was an awful lot.
Just it seems crazy to me.
Yeah, I didn't understand that either. And this is the other thing I'll say is I have got used to it now. It's not as itchy as it was. I put this on this morning and I was like, oh, it's super itchy. And I thought, I don't know if I can stand it. But actually, I've had it on about over 2 hours now, and it's loads better than it was in terms of how it feels against my skin. I've got a little vest on underneath, but I think going forward I'd have to wear like a long sleeve t-shirt probably with it.
Gardening, boom.
I actually think I will wear it. I know this sounds silly to wear a lovely jumper when you're gardening.
No, that was the point.
Yeah, I think because it's sort of not hugely fitted, but it's nicely fitted. It's a nice length. It's not super long.
And
I think it'll be
breathe
good.
A bit.
Yeah, I think it'll be good for gardening.
The reason why I love the Let Low piece
I won't have to wear a jacket.
No. I love the Let Low piece. Let Low pea, body warmer, and you can feel the air. So even though it's cold, it keeps you warm, but you don't feel quite so enclosed as like in a jacket or whatever. Lovely.
But the yarn is Jamieson and Smith.
Yes.
Shetland Aran.
Yeah.
I think that's what it was called.
Just don't mix the blue with the cream.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only thing I would say. It's a bit disappointing that blue has not been set properly.
No.
It's a very intense blue, so I know that intense colours are more difficult to set. You can have some dye left.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that was a bit of a panic.
Show us your hat.
So, yeah, I've got one more thing that I've finished. I've finished Bryony's hat that will be for university wearing. So it's this one. Beautiful.
Oh, she'll love it.
And this is the design that I spoke about last time. I think it was on the needles last time, wasn't it? It's a hat that I've designed that I will be doing something with later in the year. But this is the third one I've knitted now, and I wear mine literally every day. so I thought I'd make one for Bryony. It's fingering weight, but the brim is a folded brim, so the brim is double. And it only uses 50 grams of yarn. I weighed it and I think it was 49 grams. And I've got like 52 grams left, so half a skein and you've got yourself a lovely hat. But the yarn is from Pixie Yarn and it's Queen Bee, which is perfect for Bryony. And I've got 50 grams left to do something with. I'd have enough to make a shorty pair of socks for me, so I might do that, or just put it into various different scrappy projects. But yeah, that's all finished.
Cool.
So I'm just putting that away. She won't be wearing it now. Even though it's still been really cold and still is really cold at the moment, who knows what's going on. But no, I'm just going to put this away and pack it in a suitcase when she goes off to university.
I think it's time that we got back in the kitchen to finish off our Yorkshire curd tart, because when you taste this, you're not going to believe it.
Welcome back everybody to Kay's Classic Bakes. So we are making our Yorkshire curd tart. We are halfway through and we're ready now to make the filling. This is the very exciting part where we get to make the filling, we put it into that lined tin and we get to bake it. So the first thing I'm going to do is grab my pastry lined tin, I don't know what to call it. I'm going to grab it out of the freezer and we're going to get to making the filling. So we are ready to start making our filling. So we've got our pastry case here, which is now really cold. We've got our curds, which I've just put into a little bowl here. And I've weighed these and I've got just slightly over 200 grams. When I've done it before, I think I got 206 grams or something. It will vary depending on your milk and everything. But around about 200 is absolutely perfect. And you can see it looks sort of like cottage cheese or ricotta cheese. And we're ready, like I said, to make the filling. So what I've got here is I've got two bowls. I've got one that I'm going to make my filling in, but then another one that I'm going to whip up some egg whites, because the first thing we've got to do is separate off some eggs. So in my big bowl here, what I've done, because this is the one that I'm going to whip up my egg whites in to make, basically, it's not a meringue because we're not adding sugar into them, but we're going to whip up the egg whites. And to have successful egg white whippage, your bowl needs to be completely free of any grease at all. If you've got any grease in there, then it won't work. So what I always do is part of the lemon, I just take it and I just give it a rub around the bowl. And that will just eliminate any little bits of grease that might have been lingering from, being in a cupboard or whatever. So that's all ready. What I'm going to do first of all is separate my eggs. So the whites are going to go in here and the yolks are going to go in this little bowl. So all I do to do that is I crack it, take it over to here, and I just gently pull it apart and let the white fall out. And then I just move it from one to the other. I mean, there is a little bit of danger involved in this because you don't want any of the yolk to go into your whites. But with a bit of luck, we won't have that happen. And the whites, I'm now going to whip up until they are stiff peaks. So that's our egg whites ready. So I'll just set this to one side and bring in my other bowl. Whilst I've been doing this, I turned my oven on and it's set to a temperature of 195 degrees C. And I put in the baking sheet just to heat up as well. Because what we do is we give this an initial blast of quite hot air, a hot temperature, let's say, and then we're going to turn it down. Okay, so that's preheating. Now into my bowl, I'm going to put in my cheese curds. Get them all out. And then into that, I'm going to add 60 grams of caster sugar to the cheese curds. Okay, So I'm going to give that a little mix together. I just use a spoon to do this. And you can see the curds. You can see the curds are a nice dry texture. As you beat them, they will sort of soften up. There we go. That's perfect. And then into this, I'm going to add my currants, and I've got the zest of one of the lemons in here as well. I find the best currants are usually from Greece, that kind of part of the world, and these ones are really good. Golden black. We just get these from Ocado. They are organic Corinth currants, dried in the shade. So I've got 30 grams of my currants and then the zest of a lemon. So they are going to go in. And now I'm going to get one of my nutmegs. So I'm going to put a bit of a grating into the filling, but then I'm going to add some on top as well at the end. Now this is really up to you how much you put in. I just sort of put it in till I think it's enough. You know, I really love nutmeg, but it shouldn't be completely overpowering, but you need to be able to taste it. That looks fine. I suppose I've used that much of the nutmeg. And then give that a mix. And now we're going to add in the egg yolks. Give that a stir. And those egg yolks are really going to give it a wonderful colour. And then we're going to incorporate the egg whites. Now when you're incorporating in egg whites, you should always use a metal spoon. So I've got a really nice big metal spoon here. And I'm going to put an initial spoonful in and just sort of stir that in quite rapidly. Delia Smith always used to do this when she was putting in egg whites into anything, so I do what Delia always did. So the first spoon just goes in fairly quickly, just to sort of loosen off the mixture. And then after that we're going to put in spoonfuls and just be a little bit more gentle, so it's sort of a folding and cutting motion, always with a metal spoon. Until you can't see any white meringue, and then just add the next spoon. And just keep going until you've added in all of that egg white. Okay, so that's all incorporated now, so we're just going to pile it into our pastry case. And I'm going gentle because I don't want to lose any of that air. Get it all out. And then just gently spread it to the edges. It will find its own way, but you just need to help it a little bit. Lovely. So the final thing I'm going to do is just add another grating of nutmeg on the top. That's lovely. Don't drop your nutmeg into it, which I did do last time, but it was fine. So now I'm going to pop it into the oven on that preheated baking tray, and I'm going to give it 10 minutes at that high heat, and that's just going to give an initial sort of woomph to the pastry and the filling, and then I'm going to lower the temperature to 180 degrees C, so it's like a medium oven, and give it another 20 minutes. So we're going to get it in there quickly now. So here it is, straight out of the oven, and you can see what happens is it puffs right up. Can you see there's like a wobble to it? Can you see that? But it's firm, but it's got a lovely puffy wobble, so to speak. So I'm just going to leave that in the tin to cool for about half an hour. And then after that you can take it out of the tin. I leave it on the base that's in the tin though, it just makes cutting so much easier, but we'll take off this ring that's around the outside. So yeah, I'm just going to leave that now to cool, and then we can give it a try. That's our tart all ready to be tasted. So of course we need a special guest, don't we, to do that. So let's see who it's going to be today.
Now this is like going in a time machine.
Is it?
Yes, every lunchtime. Well, not every lunchtime, but when I used to work at the music shop in York, always Yorkshire curd tart from Thomas the Baker's.
Did you used to have it when you were really young then, or was that just your memory of it when you were sort of a teenager?
I remember having it from the ages of about 15
Right.
to about 20.
I was looking at this recipe. It recommended that you eat it either slightly warm or at room temperature.
That is not how it came
No.
from Thomas the Baker's.
But your recollection is of you having it chilled.
Yes, because
So
it
we
came
tried
out
it.
chilled.
Yeah, we tried it both ways, haven't we? And
Yes.
we prefer it chilled.
Well, it's better chilled.
Yeah. So this is kind of just slightly warm and no soggy bottom.
That's cold.
No, it is.
Oh, that's lovely. Oh, yeah. I mean, what's so cool about it
is really lovely.
it does very much to me feel like a New York cheesecake, is it?
Yeah, it's hard to
A baked
describe.
cheesecake.
It does.
If you say that to someone, they're going to...
Yeah, but it's not quite as smooth as that.
Yeah, it's way nicer.
It's like a bit more like crumbly-ish is wrong.
Baked
describing
cheesecakes are
it.
too rich,
Yeah, it's not rich.
which I think is what makes it so unbelievably...
I don't think it's rich.
No.
And the pastry as well is really good because it's really crumbly. It is more like a shortbread, isn't it? Don't you think?
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's more like... It's like a cheesecake, the base.
Yes.
I'm telling you, that is the comparison.
And an American New York style.
It's like an American cheesecake, except it's half the size. It's nowhere near as rich.
No.
And it doesn't taste cheesy.
No, it doesn't. You can taste the lemon and nutmeg comes through really quite strong, doesn't it? Which I love. It's really individual. I think it's really hard to describe to somebody if they've never had it what it tastes like.
Well,
but I would say if you like cheesecake, you're gonna like it.
So I've got to describe this to someone who's never had it.
Yeah.
It's delicious. Go make it.
So there we have it, the fantastic Yorkshire curd tart, which is just so delicious. And of course we had to have it with a lovely cup of tea in a china teacup today. We've gone all out English. So I hope you really enjoyed that, and I do really hope that you give it a go. I think you will really enjoy it. It's something different, it's unusual, it's very traditional for the area that me and Dan are from, and it's got lots of lovely memories, especially for Dan. So thank you all for watching, and I will see you again really soon for more Kay's Classic Bakes.
Now that's what I call a classic bake. And what I love so
good.
much about the bakes you've done so far this series, and I think it's the ingredients. And I also think it is, you don't tend to go crazy with the rich stuff.
No.
They've all been good on my tummy. Because as we get older, I know, it'd be lovely to think we can all eat like we used to when we were 24. Well, you can't.
No, 24.
And I know. There you go, you see.
Oh, rewatching it, season 2 is
yes.
excellent.
Yes.
Yes.
So to be able to, indulge yourself every so often is just wonderful. And this is just spectacular.
It's so yummy.
I know there's a lot of
Honestly,
people
it's
out
so
there who
yummy.
love, the history and things.
Yeah.
You want to eat something historical.
Yeah.
You want to eat something that's properly Yorkshire. This is it.
Yeah, and if you're from Yorkshire and you've had it before, you'll know what we're talking about. You'll understand the taste and what the flavours. But it's really worth making it yourself because, even if it's just you at home or you and one other, you freeze it. Freeze half of it, which is what we've done, and I just defrosted it in the fridge overnight. Just put it in the fridge, covered it over, and it was perfect the next day. So
I feel like we need to add a tagline to your Kay's Classic Bakes.
do we?
Treats you can rely on.
Right, okay.
That sounds like a description of you.
Thank you. It's nice you consider me a treat. That's okay. I'll take
I love
that.
it.
I'll take that.
Kay's Classic Bakes is back in June.
Because
Next time it's more England and Castle Nation, and then Yanni Book Club is
Yeah.
back the episode after that.
Yeah.
All very exciting. So much going
exciting.
on. And speaking of exciting things, now it's time for the Endy Bits.
Endy Bits.
So, Mentioned it earlier on in the show. Our patron exclusive show is an absolute whopper on Sunday because we're talking all about the summer of stitching.
Yeah.
So full details, everything that's going to be happening, when it'll start, when it'll finish.
Yeah.
Will you touch on things that people might need as well?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, inevitably people ask me questions.
You're going to be talking about the inspiration too and showing some of the inspirations too, which is really exciting.
Yes.
There'll be photographic inspiration shared with everyone.
Yeah.
So don't miss that. It is Sunday the 28th and it is at, so 28th, I better say the month is of April. And it is at 2 p.m. British Summer Time.
Yeah.
We will share at 1:30 p.m. British Summer Time on the day of broadcast a link to the live show. And then at 3:10, it's available for anyone to watch whenever they like.
Yeah, in case you can't be there live.
Yes.
Yeah.
So full details, everything I've just said, follow the link in the show notes and you can find out all about how to watch that show.
Yeah.
Mentioned it earlier, our latest issue of Knitability is out now. So that's a really great issue full of loads of great articles. It's linked in the show notes below if you want to go find it and give it a read. Kaya's got a couple of things to show you.
I've got a couple of things. So following on from finishing that hat that I just showed you, I want to do a size just a bit smaller because that one I would say is sort of medium large. I say my head's medium and I like a slightly looser hat. So I wanted to do a size that's a bit smaller and I've got this yarn to do it in. I can't wait to cast this one on. I wanted this potentially will be a gift for Nana Wendy. Maybe for Christmas, I might save it for Christmas. But she really loves bright colours. She's always loved bright colours, hasn't she? And she loves pink. So, is that spelt wrong?
No.
Is that how you spell it?
Yes.
It looks wrong to me in my head.
Yes, spell it how it's written, Kay. Let's all have a laugh. No, don't. Just call it what it is.
I think the S should be there and the C should be there.
Okay, maybe you're right.
I think it's spelt wrong. I'm going to show it to you and you'll know. So I got a skein of Malabrigo sock.
I don't want to talk about it.
Just the straightforward sock, not the ultimate sock. And this colourway is fuchsia. And
that's all we're going to say about that.
Is that right, everybody? I don't think that's right. That's all I'm saying. I think the S and the C should be the other way around.
Yeah, but the more I think about it, the more I do too.
Okay, so here's, look. Oh, my...
Maybe it's not called fuchsia, Kay.
Goodness, maybe it's not. Look at that colour. Is that not heavenly? Jen, if you're watching.
Jen is our Knitability editor who loves pink.
Jen will love this. So I'm going to be making one in that. So the Malabrigo sock is just 100% merino. It doesn't have nylon in. But I've used this several times before, and in fact my very first pair of socks that I ever knitted, I've still got upstairs. It was a little pair for Bryony. She was only small at the time, and I knit them in Malabrigo sock, just straightforward sock. I didn't know any better. And a sort of bluey green colour, I forget the colourway name, and it was a ribbed sock. I think Bryony was about 7, so it's just this little pair of socks, and they're still perfect. You know, because she didn't wear them very much, then she grew. But anyway, yeah. So this one is going to be one of those hats, and I think it's just going to be fantastic.
Gorgeous.
And then the other thing I wanted to tell you about is something a bit random, but I was watching...
Kay sends a lot of cards. She's always sending cards.
Yeah, I like to have a stack of cards, greetings cards, to send, just because I do often send people notes. But I was watching recently, Michael Portillo's got a new Great British Railway Journey series out that you can watch on iPlayer. And of course, you all know how much I love Michael. I literally love that man. That's all I'm going to say. But in this particular one that he was doing, he was in Devon and Cornwall. I love Cornwall. I've never been, but I'm always interested in it because I've read loads of books set there. And I just find it really fascinating, all the little coves and beaches, and it makes me think of Agatha Christie as well. So I just love the feel of Cornwall, even though I've never been. And he went and he was outside and he was walking in beautiful countryside, and he met this artist who was there painting. And he was talking to this artist and he was telling him all about his work and how it's all inspired by the area. And I loved his artwork so much, I went and looked him up and found out that there's a website where you can buy his prints, which even the prints are pricey, but they also did cards. And I was like, I'm going to look at those. And I bought some. And I wanted to tell you because I just love his artwork. His name is Kurt Jackson, and I'll show you the back of one of the cards because that's got all his information on. And I just bought them online from the web shop, came super quick. And the one that I wanted particularly is this one, and I'll show it to you. And then I've got some others, which I'll show you briefly. But his artwork is really interesting. He's very kind of hands-on with his art. His hands were covered in paint, and he uses like spatulas, and he uses his fingers and all. You know, he's really involved with the painting. And I just love the style. But this particular one that I saw really drew me in because Nana Wendy and Grandpa Steve loves Marmite. He absolutely loves Marmite, doesn't he? And I saw this card and I thought, oh my goodness, I've got to get that for Grandpa Steve's birthday. It's his birthday coming up fairly soon. Isn't it lovely? And it tells you on the back when he painted it, and it says evening, autumn, September 2012, acrylic on board. And it is sort of scrawled in here as well. You can see he sort of scrawls into the paint when he's just finished it. And isn't that just the loveliest thing? So I got a pack of 4 of that print, but then I got another couple of packs of sort of mixed prints. And he does a lot of sort of coastal scenes. I mean, look. This one's beautiful. Oh, aren't they just gorgeous? That one on the back says the Sennen lifeboat passes Cape, evening high water 22, mixed media on card. And then there's florals as well, similar to that Marmite one. That's marsh valerian, marsh thistle and pink campion from the banks of the Fowey, Drains Valley. So, you know, they're just gorgeous. So I picked these up. They weren't inexpensive, I'll say. But I think it's just well worth it because they're all little pieces of art. This one, look at this one. Oh, isn't that beautiful? Because I'm thinking if you send that to someone, if that was me, I would frame it. You know, you could frame the card and have some beautiful artwork on the walls. So I wanted to tell you about him because he seemed a lovely, lovely man, obviously incredibly talented, very passionate about his local area and about, you know, ecology and all of those kinds of things. So I wanted to mention it in case, especially if you are in sort of Devon and Cornwall, you might already know about him, but I really love them, so.
Lovely.
So,
what a wonderful way to finish with some gorgeous art.
Yes.
We needed some of that Tony Hart music. Do you remember?
Oh.
I can't remember what it was.
It's time for the gallery, he used to say.
Yeah. But and then there was no words. It was just the music, wasn't it? And then, something like that.
Wasn't it?
Yeah. It was very cool.
Yeah.
So, folks, that's it. Radio show is back next week. There was no radio show last week because Knitability was published.
Yeah.
But like I say, back next week as normal. And of course, Tuesday, Thursday, usual, wonderful Patreon exclusive always. Yep. So you can rely on that. So thank you so much for watching.
Thanks, everybody.
And we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Have a lovely rest of your day.
With a brand new episode which will feature England, a castle nation. We'll see you then.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Sitting and knitting, standing cable bakery prayers. Enthusiasm's not quitting, pretending cable bakery bears. They'll take you to fabulous places of which their favorites they'll share. You better buy a pattern, get yourself a bakery bear. You'll find yourself in a castle while watching the bakery bears. It never feels like a hassle to sit and watch the bakery bears. What's on your shelf or what's in